on. If not, we'll proceed.
Sounds like somebody's having some dental work done somewhere.
Yeah. All right, I got 4 after. We'll go ahead and get started, and if they chime in, that'll be fine. I think the first thing we need to do, I need someone to make a motion and get a second to establish that this electronic meeting is an essential function of government under the governor's order. Can I have a motion for that so we can proceed?
Make a motion.
Motion from Brian Barnett. I'll take a second.
Second.
A second from Todd. And we also need to do roll call for these as well. So let me go through the roll. Mary Beth. Just say yes or no, I guess. I think you're muted.
Present.
Okay. Well, you need to vote yes or no. We're approving holding this meeting electronically. So I,
Yeah.
or, okay.
Yes.
Phil.
Yes.
Todd.
Yes.
Brian.
Yes.
Jan.
Yes.
And Jody.
Yes.
All right, we'll say motion carried.
You also got Glenn as a.
Oh, Glenn's a voting member. Glenn?
Yes.
Yes, and I'll have me as well, so yes.
Okay.
Okay, we're official. The governor will allow this now. First, I want to say thank you for selecting me as chairman. I'll do my best, and one thing that I like to do is get feedback from everyone. So we'll certainly make sure as we hold these meetings that everybody speaks up. So there'll be always be an opportunity for everybody to make their voice heard. And I'm going to now we got the minutes that we need to approve. Only thing I noticed in there that I think Glenn was present. It didn't show him as present in the meetings in the minutes. We might need to add him in there as attending.
Okay.
I move for approval of the minutes with that addition.
Okay, got a motion to approve those by Todd.
Second.
Got a second? Okay, we'll do a roll call. Mary Beth,
Yes.
Philip,
Present.
No, there's one.
Yes. What?
Todd,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Jan,
Yes.
Jody,
Yes.
and Laura's come on now. So Laura, you agree to approve the minutes?
Yeah.
All right. And Glenn?
Yes.
And myself. All right. Meeting minutes are approved with that one addition that Glenn as present. And now we'll have a brief update on our total project status, and I'll let Bob just kind of lead the way on that. Bob, you want to touch on a few brief things? I know we got some things coming up after agenda item 4, where we talk about the Agricultural Learning Center. We got the rural development update. Is there any other things you want to cover there?
No, just to let everybody know that we're continuing to work on the financial side of it. And the good thing, I guess, from especially from the standpoint of Washington County, is that they're expecting the rural development rate to hopefully drop to 2.25% the 1st of July. So we have we're essentially complete with our application process, but we've asked them to hold off until the 1st of July, so that the rate would hopefully drop from 2.38% down to 2.25%. So, over 30 years or whatever the term's going to be, that's a big savings. So we're very happy about that. We do have everything in. We're waiting on the FONSI, the notice of no significant impact on the environmental. We just have to. It's gone through all of its process, and the response period that's required on that. So we just have to get it from rural development and then put it in the paper. But as far as what we're doing on the financial side on that, that's the last step that we are aware of as far as the application. The other thing that we're doing, just and this again is something I think the county should feel good about if we're able to pull it off, is that we're petitioning as soon as we get the letter of conditions, which is rural developments, their commitment for the funding, the amount of money, the $32,750,000 over the term, which we're expecting to be 30 years, and the interest rate, which if it drops to 2.25%, then that's locked in for the entire project. If it takes us 5 years to build the school, that rate does not change. So, and obviously we're not going to happen that way, but it is good for us that is locked in. We are after we get that letter of conditions, then we will be petitioning them to allow us to go early for interim financing. And if we're able to do that, it would be for the total project amount. And then we'll be able to draw down and make payments to the architect and also buy the land and all that without having to have to work with the county for a reimbursement on that, or just get tied into the total project cost. So that would make it simpler for everybody if we're able to do that.
All right, thank you, Bob. Now we'll move into probably the most important thing, and it's depending on how this goes, it's a big step forward. Just reading all the background on this, I appreciate the team there coming up with these 3 designs. I know the school board had asked me questions, and I'd had a conversation with Chairman Irvin about what it would look like if we moved the building site to the east side, or if we had it in the center. And their main concern was to make sure we had enough car rider space and maximize that. So I appreciate those 3 options you put out there. And I've never had any preference myself on where the building was located out there. Just wanted to be in the smartest space. And then when you read the background on this, I think the design committee certainly has good points on all of them. So we'll move into that. I think, is anybody, we had one building position in the center of the property. Did anybody have an attraction to that layout? I personally thought when you separated the athletic field, that's probably the worst one there. Does anybody want to lay on a sword on that one? Okay, very good. So now we got an east-west layout, and I'll let Bob and Todd and Jay talk about their preference there, that the building is best located on the west side of the project. And I think in terms of what Keith and them were expressing on the maximum number of stacking spaces for cars, to me, the west side does give the most stacking of cars, and it really can expand even greater when you take into account the overflow space that can run down the street that we're building above the property. So Bob, I'll let you and the team, lead that recommendation.
Phil, did you or Mary Beth have a question?
Mary Beth
I'm
does.
sorry, I just wanted to know what were some of the drawbacks about the one in the center? What I know I read some, but basically what was the main one? Having to have 2 concession stands at each of the, go ahead, I'm sorry, sports places?
That would be, there's a reduction in the stacking lane in terms of, the car riders and how much, whether or not you can accommodate that without going back out into North Cherokee. That was a big one. The cost, was a major factor, because you have a retaining wall down below that I think is that 23 feet? I don't have that in front of me. Is that 23 feet, Todd?
I believe so.
Okay, I think it ended up being more than 20 feet. And then there's one up on top of retaining wall that's 18 feet. Those are extremely expensive.
That's true.
In order to, I pointed out that, we're not talking about the same dollars for those retaining walls, but there was $1 million put into retaining walls at Boones Creek. And if you go to the west side, we've eliminated the need for retaining walls, I think, altogether. Is that right, Todd?
Correct.
Okay, so, that's a big savings right there in terms of grading cost and retaining walls. And Tommy, you may want to have a comment on that as well.
No, it's just a cost issue. I mean, those walls are extremely expensive. Plus you got the fence and then you got maintenance and everything else. So it's the fewer walls we got down to zero, the better off we are.
Okay.
And Mary Beth, I think on that packet that is included there on that agenda item 4, back towards the end of the packet, you'll see there's a list of 11 things, I guess they would call highlights or lowlights of that particular site. It lists 11 of them, less functional play areas, 2 tall retaining walls.
I read that. Thank you.
Is
One of the
Can I-
things, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Is this new information? Because I didn't get any new information. Is this from the old?
It should have been in your packet. If
I didn't get a packet.
that's terrible.
So we don't have any slides or anything. Yeah.
No,
Okay.
I'm
Sorry,
sorry,
to
Jan.
interrupt.
They went out on Friday.
No, I didn't get any new information from the last time that we got things online.
Oh, really?
Well, I don't know if you can see here, this is it might not show up on here. Yeah, it's probably not going through. That's the layout with the building was in the center and it, separated the athletic projects. And I think the parking was not quite as good that way when it's in the center. And then you should have been in your packet, a east and west layout there too, and the advantages of both. So even those you're not going to have in front of you.
I'm sorry, Jan. We'll end up, I'll have them communicate with you and find out what would have happened because, slow mail still would have gotten to you before today. So there must have been something I know they sent you one, so.
If we could just either be very descriptive or if somebody has a way to send me anything online, I can look at it here.
Yeah, I can do that. I was going to ask, what's your email address?
It is Janice Allen 11881@gmail.com.
Is that ALLEN?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'll send that right now.
Thank you so much.
We'll give you a chance to look that over there too. Has anyone else got any comments on the center location? We can always come back to it later if we need to.
Yeah, I will say on that center, Mayor, that at first that was my thinking that'd probably be the best location, but after realizing you have to have 2 sets of bathrooms, 2 sets of concession stands, and even for school, you might want to, some kids might want to be playing like kickball or something on the baseball field, and others want to just be on the football field. Then you've got on both sides, and
Right.
I think, it's ideally I liked it, but now no, it's not ideal. So.
Yeah, it's kind of the way there've been some things I thought, man, I think I'd said something to somebody before about a certain couple of features that I thought, man, that'd be great. We need to make sure we push that. And then when somebody explained why this thought of mine was not right, I said, yeah, you're right. That's not the best. So, sometimes our initial thoughts, and that's why we have these meetings, is to flush all that out. And some of the reasons that the west side that they list are good reasons, are also reasons why the east or the center doesn't necessarily work. So we'll talk about all of those. Anyone else got any comments about that center location?
Oh, no.
Football, like for football games, and then like if we talked about possibly hosting soccer tournaments there, plus for track. I'm not sure that lower parking lot there is going to be enough for that. I mean, it's just going to be further space for especially older people to have to walk to get to those games.
Yeah, certainly a division there. So, okay, Bob, I'll let you and Todd and Jay kind of talk about the west position that you're recommending, and we can touch on the while we're doing that, discuss the east location, the pluses and minuses of both of those.
Well, if I'll just start it out real quickly. You know, we did list, and there's a number of positives that are in that list. I think the disadvantages. Just trying to think. Maybe I think there was one in there that was maybe a little bit of a disadvantage. But from a security standpoint, and talking to law enforcement, to our police department in terms of security, the closer it is to North Cherokee, the better it is from a security standpoint in terms of them being able to drive by on their arterial route and pretty much at least see most of the school site. The idea that it gets back on the east side is probably the worst alternative from the standpoint of not, the only way you really know what's going on back there is to have to drive back. So from a police department standpoint, it's much better to be where people can see, even somebody driving by that has some question. It's much better from a security standpoint. If you have an emergency vehicle, if you need an ambulance that goes to the gym or something like that, just the closeness, and same thing with the fire department. If there's a fire, just being able to get to it much more quickly is a lot better. You have the maximum stacking, the parking. If you're on the east side, you lose parking and effective parking when it comes to the athletic facilities and things like that. And you certainly lose almost half of the stacking just because you're coming down that long stretch, and you pretty much cut that in half. If you're on the west side, you go down that long side and then loop back, and that's where we get the maximum stacking. The layout itself of the school is in the most compact arrangement possible. It takes up the least amount of land, so that provides the maximum amount of land, for other facilities, going to the east. You have another big issue is access to North Cherokee, and the fact that we really need to have at least 3 connections to North Cherokee to allow for the bus loop and the car riders, the CDC connection, and that kind of thing. So that, those are big ones that I've already mentioned, the fact that it doesn't need a retaining wall, and, as far as, the rest of the site is concerned. So I don't know, Jay Cusker, if you want to add anything. I don't need to take up the time myself, but.
No, I think you hit the major points that, one of our goals, with the site strategy itself is to maximize the security potential. And while you can't put up a high security fence around the site to keep, people out that you don't want in there, you can maximize the ability for the SRO to be where the SRO needs to be, which is inside the building, and simplifying and speeding up the pickup drop-off process as much as possible. And, putting the building on the west side simply by maximizing the distance from the new traffic circle back to the building itself, that's naturally going to be the best option. So,
hey Jay.
Yes.
Can I interrupt for 1 second?
Sure.
Jan, can you give me your email address again? It bounced back, so I must have done it wrong.
Try this one.
Okay.
It's easier. It's alanj@wcde.org.
CDE.org. alanj@wcde.org.
WCDE.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
The other thing, Tommy, you might want to just talk, about grading cost. And, there's not any scenario where the building is totally, on cut as opposed to fill, but the amount of fill that is be involved in the orientation that we have recommended is the minimum amount of fill, and you might want to talk about the importance of that, Tommy.
Well, if, when you start putting compacted fill in, it's got to do a lot with the type of soil we got and the moisture content of the soil. And if we get wet weather like we did at Boones Creek, it can become a fairly expensive proposition. So the one on the west side also gives it, like you said, there is cut, and the building is on cut and fill, which is not unusual, but there's not large amounts of fill, which cost-wise and ease of construction-wise works out pretty well.
Thank you.
I know I went through and made some notes on things and on the east and west locations. I'll just kind of go through those, and then we might want to hear from everybody else on what their pluses and minuses were on maybe some of the locations. Want to make sure people have a chance to speak. But on the east side, some of the things that stood out to me in the east side is really would be at the dead end of that street we would build. There's always the opportunity in the future that street could, whether it's 5 years from now, more than likely it wouldn't be that soon, but 10 years, 20 years, that street could one day connect to the Boones Creek Road. That would be the ideal outcome, but that's really unknown at this point. But that location would be at the end of a dead end street, which makes everything more congested at that end. So one of the notes our point to was the buses, car riders, and CDC students all have access to the school building from the same drive, which can create traffic congestion. So to me, that stood out. And then having retaining walls, 23 feet and 18-foot retaining walls, I think the cost in there was possibly up to $500,000 or more on that. And to me, that's money that can be spent, there on the building itself, or a lot of other features that we could add inside the school. And then just naturally looking at that, it makes sense that all the utilities would be extended, quite a bit, and there's more cost involved there. So you add that cost of the extra utility length, and then to retaining walls. To me, you got costs that can go into the building and other features. And then just the security, being able to access the building much quicker. I think that was some things that stood out to me on why the east side might not be the best location. And some of the things I liked about the west location, it reduces the need for the retaining walls, which allows us to put more money into it. And being able to put that building on more of a cut ground would improve the long-term stability of that building, which means we might have a building there that'll last a lot longer, a few repair issues and all those things. So for the long term, for the county, that would be much better. I like the grouping of the gym and the cafeteria and all that together. I thought that looked really good. And you had multiple entrance and exits off of 2 different streets, which I think would spread the traffic out, would make things much better. I thought the layout for the CDC and the pre-K areas was good. There's a couple of things I would add into that as if we progress there. And of course, as I said, the utilities would run much shorter, so we have those savings there on the west side location. And also, I think the grading, from what Todd said, the stormwater runoff of the property is more easily detained, and that's going to have us some cost savings there too. So if we want to maximize what we can put into the building and some other features, I think we take those things into account. Does anybody else want to speak to the pluses and minuses of those east? And I see Mary Beth holding her hand up there to the east and west locations. Mary Beth?
Like the CDC play area there, and along with the pre-K play area. But where would the playground be? Is there a green space that could be set aside for like a playground equipment or something? Because the courtyard, I like the courtyard to be utilized for other things besides a playground. Is there any place that had been recommended, or?
I can answer that if you
Okay,
want,
great.
as far as one spot.
Yes.
We haven't really talked about that a whole lot, but if you're looking at that west plan,
Yes.
if you look at the corner of the building where it says 13 feet fill, kind of be towards like the north corner of the building.
Yes.
Okay, on the other side of the trail from that, would be a flat area that would most likely be outside of general field space.
Oh, that would-
That's one spot it could go.
That would be perfect. Thank you.
Good question there, Jen. One thing I had about that CDC and that pre-K area, to me, it is closest, the one most visible to the street. So to me, if we have those areas there, we'd want to make sure, I think that we create some privacy for those two areas. And I think it said something about a fence, but one thing I didn't care for at Boones Creek was just that, metal chain link looking fence when you walk into the building. I thought it took away from the building itself, but if we did this plan, I'd want to make sure that we didn't just have a fence, that we did something more attractive, somewhat like a wall. And my thinking was, if you've been by the Boone Street market there downtown, we've got that pretty wall with a couple of murals up there. And we could do something like that to kind of give those kids in there some privacy in that little area outside their building. So I like the idea we could possibly play around with something like that there. Has anyone got another comment on the east and west locations? Brian, you got anything about those two locations? Okay, Todd?
No, I believe I've expressed it to you and to Bob, but I was the one that originally asked for the separate drawings for the middle and the east locations, and I appreciate them showing us the different designs and the highlights and lowlights of each one. And I think with the cost of the retaining walls, definitely the west one would probably suit best for what we need and trying to save money.
All right, thanks, Todd. Jody, how about you? You got anything you'd like to add?
No, it's an interesting discussion, and I'm taking some notes and thinking about how to bring some of the points back to the county commission so they're in the loop on kind of the process, at least a little bit as you go forward. I've appreciated some comments about cost savings and that's staying at the top of the conversation. I know that's certainly something they'll want to hear about. So thank you for that.
Let me make a comment, Jody. If you want us to, we'll be glad to send minutes to the meetings and packets just as FYI to the county commissioners if you want us to. You just need to let us know.
I do think that a summary would be nice for the packet, and then I can use those as talking points if Chairman Matherly finds that we have enough time on our agenda for a short update in July. That would have to be in by, I think, July 16th to make it.
Okay, I'll try to put something together for that.
Well, one thing I appreciate, I think it was smart to do. I didn't have anything to do with it, but it was a good idea, I guess, from Bob and probably Tommy and J&M, is to kind of separate out the athletic features of the project from the school, because really what's going to take the longest to plan and design and all that's really the school building itself. The other stuff at one point we should be able to flow through that much better. So to get this location solved allows our architects to kind of keep this project moving forward. Probably can save a month or two of time. So I think separating those two was smart by the design team there. Jan, you had a chance to look it over, and do you have any comments about those east and west locations?
I would really have to be looking at it from a bigger format. Right now it's on my phone.
Yeah.
No, not at this time.
All right. Laura, have you had a chance to look it over? You're on mute, Laura.
Oh, I'm good.
You're good? Okay. Well, Bob, I'll let you guys talk a little bit more about that. Your recommendation there is for a selection, or Glenn, I guess I should ask you. I keep thinking that you're not part of this, but you're a voting member, so you better get a chance to say your piece as well.
Sure. So one, I think to echo what you just said, as far as separating the design of the building, as far as our immediate discussion, I think was a great idea. because I think as far as the building is the primary use of the land, the school it is. So I agree on most of the stuff that folks have said about the East End. I think us being a vehicle-oriented society, anything that we're showing on the East End that shows, losing vehicle stacking, congestion nightmares, very low parking comments, I think that doesn't lend well to the overall plan. So we need good parking, enough parking. And then of course the retaining walls increases costs. Utility runs very long, that's utility cost increases. Security, just thinking that there's security is dramatically reduced. We don't want that. And then emergency vehicles, I think the same thing. Those emergency vehicles need to be able to respond quickly, and the closer to the main arterial, the better. And then on the west side, you look at reductions in costs on most cases, and better vehicle access, less congestion. And I think with a project this size, with looking at not necessarily the quality of work, but some of the quantity of cost that could be on cuts and utilities and parking, I think some of the cost savings on the west side will help the project, especially if things come up that weren't anticipated on developing the site. So I'm not saying there's contingency monies available, but there should be monies available to, if we run into something.
Yeah, to me, best case scenario is, you have some of the savings that you have, as I was saying, you put back into the building there, but there's always the opportunity that, hey, we might have to use those savings to get it in within the budget of $32,750. So, on the front end, making sure we don't, make some mistakes is probably important. Philip, I didn't see you in the corner. You got anything you want to add, Philip?
Well, I just want to say that I like the orientation of this building on the west end better. I think it's going to look more like a school compared to the one I looked at last month that was all the way up against the road. I did not like that one, but I like this a lot better, the one we're looking at right now. It's listed as K-8 school number 3.
Right.
I like the position building on the west side better.
All right, very good. Dr. Flannery, have you got an opinion on that or anything?
The argument in favor of that west side location is unassailable. I can't see doing anything else.
Okay, well, thank you.
We had I'll throw this in. We had a 4-hour meeting with Jordan Hughes on Monday to talk about internal layout and that kind of thing. But we also, in that discussion, talked about the overall layout and plan. And if it means anything, she was very complimentary of how it was put together, said that we had done some good stuff. So it's nice to hear that from a principal.
All right. Well, Todd, is there anything you want to add to it? Because I know at some point we want to, you guys are recommending that we approve building option 3, which is the west side. And that allows us to turn the architects loose and start doing all the, finer points of the design. And then we'll figure out, on the athletic side, kind of the discussions there is, the need for an official track around the football field. Me personally, I can see a track there, and I can see one without a track. Because one thought I had, we have one at the current middle school now that we as a town would update and make official and make it look more professional. But if the school board ends up feeling like we need one on that school side, or this design committee needs one on that school side, we'll move along there. But that's kind of why we wanted to not have that part of the discussion on the building, so we can save that for later and we can get this building site approved, and then let Ken and them get on the inside, and we'll have probably more things to decide on the inside than we necessarily do on this location. Bob, you want to add to that, and then we'll see if anybody wants to make a motion or anything on approving that site that you're recommending.
I think we've just discussed it thoroughly. I think the whole team, everybody together, and that's worked on the design feels very strongly this is the best place for the building. So that's our recommendation.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we accept putting the building on the west side closest to North Cherokee Street using the K-8 school design number 3, I guess is what it is.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Todd. We got a motion to approve the recommendation, which is building option 3.
I'll second it.
Got Glenn making the second there. I'll open it up for any more discussions. Anybody else got any other discussion about that? Oh, wait, if not, I'll do the roll call. Mary Beth,
Yes.
Philip,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Laura.
All you gotta do is touch it and it brings it up.
Yeah.
Okay. Glenn. Glenn.
Yes.
Okay. Jody.
Yes.
Todd, you made the motion. We got Jan,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes too. So we got unanimous vote there on the building location, and that's basically the outline we need to get started on. So really going forward, there's going to be, you know, some more features that we're going to talk about on the interior of that building. I did like too that we put that flex space near the potential of a stage that might really open it up to some good uses for the school. So that's some of the things that's going to be exciting about talking about. Okay, we'll move into agenda item 5, which is just an update on the Agricultural Learning Center, which I think is an attractive feature to that school. And just one thing that I'll add before Bob talks there, you know, we love grants in Jonesborough, that we've done a lot with them. And if we're able to capture this one on that Agricultural Learning Center, this is going to be a great addition for our school system. But is there, you know, we need to keep exploring, is there other type of grants for performing arts and things like that, whether it's art or performing arts, other things that we can get grants for to help us improve the interior of the building. You know, maybe that flex space is we're able to add features in there because we get a grant for better sound and things like that. Todd?
Mayor, who does the grant work for the town of Jonesborough? Is that Bob or Glenn's responsibility? They may want to get.
Yeah, both Bob and Glenn will be doing, you know, of course, Glenn will be doing it for the town of Jonesborough now. Bob will be the kind of the spearhead, him and Glenn probably together on this school grants.
We may want to get him with our grant writer in the school system, Tawana McKinney, and there may be some stuff out there that she can steer him towards, or he may be able to steer her to some things that'll help out as well.
Right. Appreciate it.
Working on it.
Yeah.
Say that again, Dr. Flannery.
We're working on it, I think is what you said. Is that?
McKinney is already working on that.
Okay. All right, very good.
I have a fairly long memo on the grant application going out to Dr. Flannery and Dana York, who is being very helpful in this. Dana used to be the associate chief of NRCS, which is the division within USDA, the Department of Agriculture, that's funding this grant program. So she knows all the people in Washington that she worked with, and she's has already communicated with the top people up there. So doesn't mean we get funded. They don't have a tremendous amount of money, but all the feedback we've been getting from the people in Washington is that what we're talking about doing is is right down the alley of the intent of that grant program. So we feel like we have the capability. There's probably going to be a lot of competition in it, but the maximum amount that we can get with an implementation project, which includes building construction, is $300,000. But at the same time, so we're working on the layout. I talked to Ken. He's going to help us do some cost estimating and look at some layout details so that we can include it in the application. But it is 100% money. There's no match requirement. So there would be no issue as far as the construction of the building and its cost related to the school system or the county or the town. Obviously, there's a bunch of details in terms of how you work out instruction and other things like that. But the good thing about that is that we've been having a lot of interaction with Extension Service, with RC&D, which does a field school training program in gardening and farming and that kind of thing. We have the Drop Collaborative did a curriculum that went to the State Department of Education that got approved for Unaka High School, that they won an award with. That's based on teaching kids gardening and farming skills. The whole concept of this is and I'll be quiet about it, but the whole concept is to create, you lose a lot of urbanized areas as they grow, that you tend to lose small farms. You also tend to lose the basis in which young people get connected to the skills of gardening and farming. And even though this program wasn't based around the virus itself, one of the issues that's been going on in some local communities is their ability to get healthy food products, and things run out. So the more that if you have a pandemic or you have some kind of issue, the more that your local community can produce what is necessary for your community to eat, and especially if it's more nutritious and healthy. It's not coming having to be preserved some way because you're getting it from California or some place like that. From a nutrition standpoint and a health standpoint, it's much better. So the USDA is funding this program, and one of the eligible components of it is public schools, K through 12 programming. So it's it fits what we've talked about doing. Bill Flannery obviously has been a great help with us, and I don't know how he feels, but we're excited about the opportunity. You never know where it's going to end up, but I think the good Lord takes care of us. So just see what happens.
Well, thanks, Bob. That certainly would be an addition to the school system that we don't really have, especially in the middle school and elementary level. So let's keep our fingers crossed there. And has anybody got anything they want to add on that agricultural center? If not, I'll move into the rural development. Okay. All right, we get the next and last agenda items, the update on rural development application. I think we've gotten some more good news in that area, as Bob kind of touched on earlier. But I will say that this coming together, there's been some hurdles behind the scenes that Bob and Jim Wheeler and others have had to go through to kind of get to this point, and it's working out really good. So Bob, cover this for us, please.
Well, I pretty much said everything. We have had a great deal of support from Jim Tracy, who's the head of rural development in the state, and he's gone to Washington to bat for us. So we had to, this project is different from anything that's been done in the state before, and so you have legal hurdles and to overcome, documents that that are just a little bit different than what people have been used to in the past. So we've cleared all those legal questions and issues and everything, and so it just took longer than usual, but at the same time, you don't give up, and we feel confident in the next, at least by the middle of July, we'll have everything in place as far as the financing, and hopefully the go ahead as far as the interim financing is concerned.
All right, thank you, Bob. Jay, is there anything you want to add in here at the end? That you've got a location selected, kind of what do you think we'll be seeing next?
Yeah, I'd love to. Now that we have consensus on the building shape and the location, we're going to start getting geotech begun, so that way we could do some core drilling in the area where we expect the building to go. That'll give us confirmation about the soils, and we'll be able to know that if it needs to be fine-tuned, we can shift it one way or another. But that will be getting started. I've also done a kickoff meeting with our building consultants, so the engineers, just to talk about the strategies, kind of, and clue them in on this discussion that we've had. And we hope to begin modeling of the school and creating an actual floor plan based on the option 3 potentially next week. So that way, by the next design meeting, we actually have floor plans to talk about, and we can go through that and really have an actual building design started at that point. So that's hopefully what you guys will have next time.
All right, thanks, Jay. Bob, you got anything else?
No, that's it. I do, when we start getting into mechanical issues and things like that and electrical, Philip Patrick, we will be back with you and get your input and advice on how we can as cost effectively do that and efficiently do that in terms of what you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis in the school. So,
thank you very much.
Sure.
Tommy, you got anything you want to add in? I know you're on vacation, it looks like there, but you got anything you want to add?
No, well, I'm not on vacation. I just wish I was. No, I'm good. We're working with Jay and Ken, as long as they come up with designs and looking at different stuff, so we can, keep the thing cost-wise in line.
Well,
so we're moving right along.
Right. This first vote was important because it probably did save, it could easily have saved over $1 million just by picking the right side of that building site. Jody?
Exactly.
I have a question for Mr. Burleson and Mr. Ross and Mr. McCusker. Can any of you comment on this process so far and how it's the same or different from other school buildings that you've worked on, and just any comments you have about this process?
Well, I think that the school projects, that we've worked on, essentially, they've had a lot in common. You have a lot of the similar goals and a lot of the similar challenges. This one's no different. I think, we're going to need to be especially smart about the budget, and that's a little bit different from some other projects, but certainly not unique. I think for me, something that's going to be unique and somewhat special about this project is essentially the level of involvement that we've been seeing, that, rather than wanting to simply provide a basic building with basic amenities, there's been a lot of additions and a lot of really great input in, about, being able to do additional art programs and agricultural programming, culinary, and all of these different things. And I think that's really wonderful. That to me is something different. But I hope that we can also, pull from, as we develop what this thing looks like and how, what the experience that everyone has in the building, I hope that we can pull from the history of the area and show how that history will help enable these kids as they, grow into adults, for the new century. And I just, see a lot of opportunity and a lot of potential there. So I really would love to be able to forward that and push that as much as we can.
My only comment is that it's, as Jay said, it's been a really highly collaborative process. We've asked a lot of questions. We've met with a lot of people, and we particularly appreciate the input that we've gotten from principals because, they're frontline people. And, our intention from the get-go was to get a lot of input to avoid, people saying, well, I wish somebody would have talked to me about it, because we could have avoided this problem or that problem. And so we're trying to make sure that we don't bypass anybody. And sometimes that can be a little bit more tedious, but the end product, that's sort of the way we've always worked in Jonesborough is, the town staff, before Glenn had to deal with me and a bunch of questions, and but I also think we've been fortunate not to make too many mistakes in what we've done and be as cost effective as possible. So that's the commitment that we've had to the project to begin with, and I feel Dr. Flannery and his staff have been great. I mean, and that's the other thing I guess I would say is that, the people that we've been dealing with are very impressive, very professional, and it's been a lot of pleasure to work with them. They're great.
Bob, that's a good segue. I think Mr. Patrick wants to say something, and he's had experience on a lot of schools. So, Philip?
Actually, I just have a question. Am I to understand that this project is going to have pre-qualified contractors to bid? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. That's a good point. Thank you.
It'll be the same process, Philip, we use at Boone's Creek, qualification-based selection, which
Right.
the project of this size, if they've never built a school before, they're not going to be on the list.
Yeah, we're obligated to bid it out to everybody, but that bid process is a request for qualifications, and so somebody, as Tommy said, somebody who's not qualified, who doesn't have the history, all those requirements that we're going to go through to select a contractor is going to eliminate anybody that's not capable of building the school and doing a good job. And it's also going to end up in a guaranteed maximum price as part of that process. So, and the contractor will be selected, and then the guaranteed maximum price comes after that, because they're going to work towards the end of the design to make sure that we're within the money that we have available.
Great, that'll be great. Thank you.
Ken, did you have something you want to say there?
No, I think everything's been said. It's been an exciting project, and we've had a lot of input. And I will say, not only have we had the input, they've been so cooperative. I know last Friday, I called Dr. Flannery about 4:30, see if we could get a meeting with Jordan, and he set it up for 8 o'clock Monday morning. So that's the kind of response we've been getting. So it's worked very, very well. We're excited about it.
Very good. Jody, does that answer what you was looking for?
I didn't get to hear from Mr. Burleson. I have to insist.
The big advantage we've got is the county has just built a school. So we'll take advantage of all those lessons learned there. And that, with the experience that the design team's got and the construction people that get on board, it'll work out fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, we do have a luxury there. Anyone else have something they want to ask before we close out here? Mary Beth, you and Philip?
I just wanted to, I appreciate the design team taking the concerns the school board had about the placement of the school. Thank you. I think this is really one that will work for everyone. I'm impressed. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And of course, as we move forward, things will just get even more and more important, but you got to find that footprint first before you can start putting the shoes on, I guess. Anyone else?
We do need to say that, with the information that came out yesterday, that after July 1, we can't hold this meeting by Zoom unless something else changes. So the next meeting that we would have to be in person. We have it lined up to be at the visitor center in the auditorium, where we can spread out as much as possible. So we just want you to be aware that that's what we'll have to do. I think it probably makes the most sense. We can send out update information if members would prefer. We may not. It may be better not to meet, depending upon how things are going, unless we have something to vote on. So, and we can update people. There's going to be a bunch of homework that needs to get done since we have the building placement and layout in place. So we'll just have to see what people want to do. But at any rate, if we have the meeting in July, it'll be at the visitor center and have to be in person.
Well, I think that's going to be a plus. We're going to get into, I think it's going to be a much more important as we move forward that we are doing this in person. It gives everybody a chance to really just give some more feedback. I think with all the features that's going to be involved in that school, we need to be together person to person and hashing those things out. So I look forward to that. Well, Jan, we'll make sure that, you get your packet the next time.
I really apologize.
Yeah,
If you don't-
if any of us don't have our packet by Friday or Monday, we probably need to call Bob and let him know. We'll get that run out. I think our police officers can run them out to you if they need to almost immediately. We'll make sure that doesn't happen again. Philip, Mr. McLean, did you have something to say there?
I do. My question is, since we are required to meet in person, what rules do we follow if someone has to be out of town on the next meeting date? Can they do remotely like we've been doing?
I think I asked that, and Mr. Wheeler, we'll get some legal advice on that, but he kind of told me that he led me to believe that wasn't possible. Is that right, Glenn? I think you might have been there when we talked about it a little bit.
We got notice from the comptroller's office, and it doesn't say you can't, broadcast Zoom or YouTube, but it says to basically to be holding a meeting, it has to be done physically or together in person.
Person couldn't call in and probably vote, but you certainly could through watch or something on
I didn't
live
see
stream.
I didn't see anything as far as, proxies or being able to vote or interact from a remote location. It talks about basically conducting the meeting physically in person, starting July 1st.
We can look into it and
We
see
will
if
look
there's
into
any
it.
flexibility.
I don't think there is in the county, and I think it's because part of the spirit of the law is that you're supposed to be looking at people like real actual people when you cast your vote, as opposed to imaginary people.
Yeah.
I did want to say it's not a town of Jonesborough or Washington County agenda item. It was the comptroller's office that delegated it to the cities and the counties.
All right, so we've given Todd and Jay and Ken and Bob and all of them some homework to kind of start putting the important ingredients together there for our school. So if they've got something for us to all meet on July, we'll do that. If not, we'll come back in August or both. So if nobody else doesn't have anything, we'll adjourn. All right. I guess meeting adjourned. Thanks for all the feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.